Warren Buffett and his former longtime partner Charlie Munger are known for being critical of Bitcoin. But in a recent video clip, Warren Buffett addresses exactly the problem that Bitcoin advocates keep emphasizing over and over again: the devaluation of currencies like the dollar and euro by governments. He himself will never openly support Bitcoin or admit that he has bought it, but his words reveal a lot about the system he has used for decades. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors of all time, has achieved an average annual return of 29% over the course of his career, spanning 60 years. That amounts to over 5.5 million% in profits. Clearly, he understands the game of money, and we know that too. But now, at 94 years old, he openly says, "I will buy." What Bitcoin fans have been saying for a long time. Governments, have a natural incentive to devalue their currencies. And in the video with Warren Buffett, he explains that the tendency of a government to devalue its currency over time is inevitable. It doesn't matter whether you have dictators or elected officials, there will always be the urge to weaken the currency. Warren Buffett emphasizes that the problem doesn't lie with individual people, but with the system itself. The incentives of the fiat system, that is, our current monetary system, where money is created out of thin air, are simply designed to expand the money supply and thus reduce its value. Isn't that exactly why so many people buy Bitcoin? To protect themselves from this and to break free from the system and build financial freedom? If you're interested, click the link in the description below the video. Watch the video, it's free. Warren Buffett even admits that U.S. fiscal policy worries him, just as Larry Fink has said, because it drives exactly this mechanism. So it's almost as if it's their job to manipulate the currency, Warren Buffett comments. And this is exactly where Bitcoin advocates come in. They see cryptocurrency as a countermodel to this system, limited, decentralized, and immune to political interference. And the irony is, Warren Buffett himself has benefited from the fiat system like hardly anyone else. His astronomical returns are also a result of this currency devaluation that he is now criticizing. And while Warren Buffett advises not to hold a currency that is worse than the US dollar, he still rejects Bitcoin, even though, for example, Larry Fink warns that if the US cannot get its debt under control, Bitcoin will replace the US dollar. And the fact that Warren Buffett continues to reject Bitcoin is seen as a contradiction by many. Warren Buffett sees through the game, but basically does not want to take the next step. And in the end, the realization remains that even one of the most powerful investors in the world indirectly confirms why Bitcoin is a solution for many. Warren Buffett basically calls the problem by its name, but leaves the answer to others. And just imagine if someone like Warren Buffett, who has greatly benefited from the current system himself, were to openly state what's really going on. Berkshire Hathaway is currently hoarding more cash than ever before, right before the market started to crash. He's basically saying, we'd rather stay in cash. And to me, that sounds like an indirect confirmation for Bitcoin. Of course, as I've already said, he will never openly support Bitcoin. The man is 94 years old. He's made his fortune, but the mere fact that he sees through the game and even hints at it shows just how broken the fiat system is. Let's take a look at what he said. This is a question from Mark Tomgres-Bonke and Helen Friedrichsen in Rapid City, South Dakota. As the US dollar quickly loses value in relation to other foreign currencies in 2025, is Berkshire Hathaway taking steps to minimize this currency risk and its impact on quarterly and annual earnings? If so, please explain. And I'll just add a question from Mary Cheng, another shareholder. Berkshire currently borrows in Japanese yen to offset its currency risk in its Japanese stock investments. In the future, will you invest in foreign currency denominated assets unhedged?
Yeah, well, we always have. Pretty much. The Japanese situation is different because we do intend to hold that position for a long time. And the funding costs are so low that we've essentially tried to some extent to match our purchases with yen-denominated funding. But that's not a policy of ours. In fact, that's the first time we've done that, and we've owned lots of securities in foreign currencies. So we do nothing. In terms of the question about its impact on quarterly and annual earnings, we don't do anything based on its impact on quarterly and annual earnings. I mean, there's never been a board meeting I can remember or a conversation I've had with Charlie where I said, if we do this, our annual earnings will be such and such. And therefore we ought to. Whether it's accounting or whether anything, we just, the number will turn out to be whatever it will be. What matters is where we are 5, 10, or 20 years from now. And if you start focusing on what number you're going to produce, you will quickly be tempted, at least based on the experience I've had from observing 20 companies, you'll end up, one way or another, manipulating the numbers, and sometimes manipulating them quite seriously. And I've seen people who I trust in all sorts of other ways, but when it comes to playing around with numbers, they think it's perfectly fine. And that's just not something. We just don't even consider doing that. So actually, the yen, the relationship of the yen, the behavior of the yen in the last quarter, resulted in certain gap charges. But it doesn't make any difference. It'll change next month or next year, and obviously we wouldn't want to own anything if we thought the currency was really going to hell. And that's the main thing we worry about with the United States currency. I mean, the tendency of a government to want to debase its currency over time there's no system that beats that. You can pick dictators, you can pick representatives, you can do anything. But the people, there will be a push toward weaker currencies. And of course, that is, I mentioned very briefly in the annual report that fiscal policy is what scares me in the United States because it's structured the way it is. And all the incentives are set up to do a lot of things that could cause trouble with money. But that's not limited to the United States. It's happening all over the world, and in some places it regularly gets out of control. As you know. They devalue at rates that are breathtaking, and that's continued. I mean, and people can study economics and you can have all kinds of arrangements, but in the end, if you've got people that control the currency, you can issue paper money, and you will, or you can engage in clipping currencies like they used to do centuries ago, or there will always be people. It's the nature of their job. I'm not singing them out as particularly evil or anything like that, but the natural course of government is to make the currency worth less over time, and that's got important consequences. And it's very hard to build checks and balances into the system to keep that from happening. And we've had a lot of fun here in the last either the first 100 days or the last 100 days, whatever you want to call it, the watching what happens when people try to make sure that they aren't running fiscal risks. And that game isn't over, and it never will be over, in finality. If you look up and search the great inflations of the post-World War II era, it's just a list that goes on forever, and the same names keep popping up in everything. So the value of currency is a scary thing, and we don't have any great system for beating that. We do in this particular Japanese position because we expect to hold it for 50 or 100 years or more, and we will be owning something that's denominated in yen and easily predictable, and we'll just, as long as the carry on it is right and everything, we'll attempt to issue yen-denominated liabilities. But that's not because of anything we care about in terms of quarterly or annual earnings. Greg, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, in relation to the question, that there's no doubt we were fundamentally very comfortable with investing in the 5 Japanese companies and fully aware that we were investing in yen. The fact that we could then borrow in yen was almost just a nice additional opportunity. We are very comfortable both with the Japanese companies and with the currency in which we would ultimately realize our returns, that is, in yen.
In his last major speech before Warren Buffett retires, he states it clearly. What governments always do is devalue the currency. He doesn't call it evil, but he understands that the consequences are still devastating. Price inflation, rising cost of living, and so on. At its core, that is theft. Inflation is not a coincidence, but rather systematic robbery of the people. And taxes are also a form of theft, even when unlimited money is created out of thin air and people are made to believe that there is some kind of social contract when it comes to taxes. But with currency devaluation, there is nothing at all. No one ever agreed to it. It affects everyone quietly and secretly. Then the symbolism. After 60 years and 5.5 million% profit, his final message to the world is, governments will always destroy money, so be careful. And that's exactly why Bitcoin was invented. Because Warren Buffett knows exactly how the game is played. He played it masterfully, but now, as the banks are being bailed out again, his recent statement comes across like a final warning. Look closely. The system is broken. Invest in something else. No wonder he called Bitcoin rat poison, for example. It threatens exactly the rules from which he benefited. Crazy, isn't it? So that means even one of the biggest beneficiaries is, unintentionally, saying exactly what Bitcoin has been preaching for years. And honestly, Warren Buffett's farewell speech is the perfect signal pointing toward a Bitcoin future. Ultimately, he's indirectly telling investors to buy Bitcoin. Because fiat money is losing more and more value, people are being secretly robbed, and they should protect themselves from that.